Welcome. Good evening. Happy Friday Eve to everybody out there. We are here with episode number 15 of the Assets Over Money podcast. And we got a special guest for you guys. But we're going to hold off before we get in there. I was just seeing my boy, Kevin. How we doing today, brother?
Hey, man, no complaints, brother. I ain't pushing up no daisies, so I'm doing all right.
Hey, man, it's a blessing. For y'all who know, Kevin got a new phone, man. Y'all can see the clarity. He got the new iPhone 16, the big money.
Welcome to that side of the world, Kevin. 16, baby.
Hey, we over here.
They got the AI integrated in the 16.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
I see my boy use it the other day. He was sending the text and he was like, "Watch this, Rich," and I'm like, "All right, what?" He highlighted the text and then had a little AI screen pop up, and he was able to make the text sound better.
Yeah,
so flexing on me. I'm still on the 13, so I'll get there eventually.
You'll get there, brother. Don't worry, it's coming.
I'll get there eventually. Mine's acting slow right now. It's acting up. I ain't got no space, so it's like it's coming sooner than I thought. But that's how Apple do you, man. As soon as a new phone come out, the other ones start acting up. So that's kind of where I'm at right now.
Exactly right. I thought it was just me.
Nah, it ain't.
But yeah, let's go ahead and jump into it, man. We got a special guest for you guys. And really, I'm just going to tell you a little bit about him. So Angelo Adams is our guest. If you don't know who he is, you better get ready because you're going to learn a little bit about him. But he is a seasoned leader with a diverse background spanning engineering, technology, military, and business. He is the current president of Zipcar. If you don't know what that is, he'll speak briefly about that as well, where he drives the mission of promoting urban car sharing. Previously, Angelo served as an executive at Otis Elevator, overseeing a large team and managing a range of services. He's also a West Point graduate and former Army officer. Angelo led over 120 paratroopers in Iraq and served in various roles at West Point and abroad. He also earned an MBA from the University of Michigan. Not going to talk. I like Ohio State. We ain't going to talk about that right now. And also worked at Johnson & Johnson. Outside of work, Angelo is a devoted husband, father, and is passionate about coaching, travel, real estate investing, and financial freedom and financial planning and financial learning, which I also am passionate about as well. But without further ado, I'd like to bring up Angelo Adams, man. Tell us a little bit about yourself, brother.
Yo, hey, Richard, man, thanks for that great introduction. I'm going to let you tell my kids about me because they swear they're like, "Oh, Dad, you don't know what you're doing, Dad." You know how it is when you get older, you had kids, they're like, "Dad, you used to be a cheerleader." I'm like, "No, I used to be an athlete, but no, you was a cheerleader, Dad." So, hey, thanks for inviting me out to the call. Hey, Kevin, nice to meet you. I got to go back to one thing you said. You said our mission, right? So you kind of mess it up a little bit, but the mission at Zipcar is to enable simple and responsible urban living, all right, by eliminating the need for personal cars so that we can do more car sharing in the inner city. So that's kind of the mission. I got to live it every day. So when you said it, I was like, "Ooh, that ain't right. Let me."
I appreciate it.
No, but thanks for having us. And what was your question? I'm sorry.
Really? Yeah, man. Just hearing your story. Like, it's not often that, honestly, any of us get to speak with people who are as accomplished as you. Like, we've talked to a lot of folks, but it's not every day we got to speak to somebody like you. So really, just curious about, I guess, your story. I mean, one, going to college, going to West Point in the 90s. I've heard some stories. I've heard my father-in-law went back in the 80s. I heard some stories. Know some folks in the 90s. I've heard some stories. How you navigated that to B school to becoming a president. Really just curious about that whole path.
Yeah. So, I started out. So I went to a residential school for veterans children called Scotland School for Veterans Children back when I was in high school. I was a great student, valedictorian, but like some of us, I didn't have those test scores. And so that landed me into West Point Prep. So that was sort of my avenue. Yeah, USMAS, baby. I was back in Fort Monmouth, though. So Fort Monmouth was, it's in Jersey. It was a great time. But after successfully completing USMAPs, I got into West Point, did a whole bunch of activities and clubs at West Point. But, my claim to fame is sort of, I was a mechanical engineering major, which is probably one of the more difficult majors at West Point. But I was also a two squad core athlete. So I did sprint football and I also ran track. So it was very, very busy at West Point. Obviously, I pledged Kappa Alpha Psi as well. And when I graduated from West Point, then I said, you know what? I'm going to the Army. My grades was decent enough that I got my choice of Signal Corps. I wanted to be an IT guy in the Army, right?
So people are saying that's the best branch. I'm just saying. People say this is the best branch.
Too? Okay.
Well, yeah.
I don't think I knew that. I knew that. So, yes, I was Signal Corps. First duty station was the 82nd Airborne, where I jumped out of airplanes. Don't ask me why, but you do that for a living. You get paid a couple extra dollars. That's about it. And then I went to Iraq with the 82nd Airborne as a forward company commander back in the 2003 time period. When I got back from Iraq, I went out to be an outreach officer, Richard, which I think you also been an outreach officer. So recruited high school kids that's just like myself in the Southeast region. So basically anything from, I think it was Maryland all the way down to Florida. It was the Southeast region. And, after that, I said, hey, I want to get out. And I remember telling my boss I want to get out. And he said, well, only 1 year assignment that we have right now is Korea. So they sent me to Korea for my last year in the Army. I'm going to tell you, it was the best kept secret. I lived on a Korean base. So like most people in Korea live on a US base. I was with the Koreans. There was about 60 Koreans, there were about 60 Americans, 10,000 Koreans. And so I was living that Korean life every day. I made more money, I saved more money, and I spent more money than I had ever done in my entire life up until that point. And then from there, I decided, you know what? I want to get out the Army and go to B school, and went to the University of Michigan, go blue, majored in, I guess, more general management and marketing. And I was just like everybody else, sort of following the herd. And, there's a finance herd, there is a general manager herd, a consulting herd. And at the time I was like, you know what? I want to do marketing, because marketing is sort of this hub of the wheel, or at least they tell you it's the hub of the wheel, and you kind of got control of the different things happening. And decided I want to do marketing. My first job after that was at J&J. Okay. Hopefully, J&J folks on this call, but like honestly, I literally hated it from the first day I got there to like I left. And I remember after the first year, I told my wife, I said, yeah, I don't think this is for me. Like this is not my job. She's like, well, it's only been a year, give it another year. And another year later, I was like, okay, I'm out. And I just felt like I had the imposter syndrome. If you know me, I'm an outgoing person. I'm a people person. They put me behind a cubicle with slides and analysis. And I was just like, and I sort of felt like a fish out of water. So from there, I was like, you know what? I want to do something operational. And so I found like a military JMO headhunter, and decided not to do the B school thing, because I knew if I went through the B school route, I'd be back in this herd mentality of where everybody else is going. So I did the JMO headhunter route, and they landed me a job at Otis Elevator, man. And that's where I kind of fell in love with running P&Ls, operational, and like just really problem solving. And so I started out as a service manager in charge of probably anywhere between, at the time, 10 and 18 different mechanics. And then I ran my first P&L, which was a $30 million business out of Allentown, Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. And then they moved me back to Philly, which was one of the largest offices unit-wise for Otis Elevator. And I think Philly at the time was about a $90 million business. And, we may be able to get into it. I'm not sure. But like Philly was in shambles when I first got there. And, they had couple general managers before me had been fired. And long story short is I turned the operation around in a year, and then got promoted to be a regional general manager, which brought me up to New England. And I was a regional general manager for 5 offices in New England. So basically everything north of New York, besides the state of Connecticut, was mine. I think we had about $275 million P&L as a regional general manager. Did that for a couple of years. And then I got promoted to my first executive role within Otis, which was senior director of the service center, which is basically the Otis's hub for service for all of North America. So I had all of our engineers. I had our parts center, Otis Line, which is a call center, digital technology hub, procurement, all of that stuff fell under me. Much more of an internal sell, but we did about $375 million. And then from there, Otis was really just divesting from United Technologies. So United Technologies spun off Otis and Carrier, and then United Technologies then merged with Raytheon. They became Raytheon Technologies. And at that time, I decided to, to leave the company and go pursue something else, and landed at Zipcar. So been at Zipcar now. In May, it'll be 3 years.
Nice.
We've got about, probably up to 10,000 cars spread out throughout the U.S. We've got, what excites me about Zipcar is the mission, right? Is we want to, make our colleges and universities and also our urban areas, much more better from a transportation standpoint. And so we enable simple and responsible urban living, right? And so we remove carbon emissions by car sharing. And then we also just recently had a partnership now we have with Uber that we're launching. And last year, I think, about a year or so ago, we launched JBLM. So we got some cars on military bases, and we're going to start to blow that out as well. So that's a little bit about me, kind of where I am today, president of Zipcar, and enjoying everything I do. And now that the weather's warming up in the Northeast, it's going to be outside, going to sports, baseball games, and visiting my kids. So that's a little bit about my career path.
Man, yeah, that's a lot. It made me. I was like, man, how old is this dude? I'm trying to do the math right here. You got to be what, like I'm assuming your 40s, right?
I'm in my 40s. I'm less than 50. You know what? I did watch a show, and y'all had an old head guy on here, and y'all was teasing him, and I was like, man, I wonder, like, hopefully you guys had some more old heads since then, but I guess I might be like the second old head. But
hey, we got Kevin on here too, so okay.
Okay. Yeah. I did hear when he crossed. So
Yes, sir. Hey, we got to keep it moving, man. I mean, hey, that was Kevin Calhoun, I think. Kevin,
that's who it was.
But hey, he was a wealth of information, man. You know what I'm saying? He was one of my first mentors, so we always try to stay connected with quality people, man. So no matter your age, we don't discriminate. We don't discriminate on this channel.
It's all good. It's all good.
Yeah, man. So I mean, really, with that story, there's so much, I guess, in there, and to kind of really just rise through ranks like that, you have to have certain qualities that carry you. There are really even value sets and working with people. So just curious, what are some of your values that you hold near and dear that you think is something that has been crucial to, your success?
Yes, I'll say here's what I think made me successful, sort of rising through the ranks, and then I'll separate it from sort of my values, right? So one is like problem solving, right? I was a mechanical engineering major, so understanding how to break down problems into its smaller pieces and then being able to solve problems. Like in the business world, right? Whether you got AI or not, it's all about solving problems. So whether it's the customer problem and you're trying to help solve a solution, create a solution there, or whether the P&L or the strategy, right? And you're trying to solve a larger strategy. At the end of the day, it's all about problem solving. I think the second piece is about resilience. And so, like, you never know what tomorrow's going to bring. So I've been through the pandemic. I've been, we have, technical outages and shutdowns when I was on Otis for digital technology perspective, or at Zipcar, sometimes we have outages as well. Customer challenges, again, problem solving, whether it's, say at Zipcar, we have B2B, Otis, we have B2B, but we also have B2C as well. So, being able to engage with different customers. And then I think, the next one I would say is really having a growth mindset, right? Unfortunately or fortunately, however you look at it, the business world is sort of like professional sports. It's like you're up or you're out, right? So you rise up the ranks to a certain level, you make the business money, you rise up to the next level. You don't, you probably be looking for an exit, one way or another. But you got to have that growth mindset and figuring out, like, how do I make something better than it was when I got there? How do I make this business better? Storytelling, I think it's all about, like, how do you tell your stories either to a customer why they need to buy whatever it is or why they need to upgrade, right? Because every day a sell is made, and I might have gotten this from a movie. I can't remember which one, but every day a sell is made. So either the customer's selling you on why they can't buy it or why they shouldn't buy it, or you're selling them on, why they should, right? Same thing with your employees. Either your employees are selling you on why they can't do something, or you're selling them on why they need to do something, right? And so I think it's all about, like, how do you tell your story, how you're passionate about the story of the business, of the solution, or whatever. And then the last piece I would say that made me successful is agility. I've lived in probably 10 different states, 12 different moves. Probably half of that was in the military. The other half was probably corporate. And just being able to say, you know what, all right, I'm going to pick up and go to where the next opportunity is. And, fortunate for me, my family, my wife, my 2 kids, it actually made them stronger. Like my son and my daughter's bond is just crazy. And I knew I wouldn't be able to separate it when my son got into West Point. He also got into the school that she went to. And so I knew at that point it was a loss. It was like, all right, cool. I know where he's going. And so I would say that's sort of like why and how I rose through the sort of the professional ranks. My values for me is family. Like, for me, it's, the core group of, my wife, my 2 kids, and just wanting to do better for them and see their successes. Second is like excellence in everything I do. Right. So no matter whether it's, at work, coaching on the football field, I believe that my name is my signature. Right. Like they say, Angelo said this, or Angelo, like, to me, that's like you signed a contract. Right. So to me, it's all about like, being excellent, having integrity. And then the last piece is about leadership. Right. And to me, leadership is about like leading by example. Right. Sometimes you got to roll up your sleeves. You got to get in there in the foxhole or get in the elevator machine room and get your hands dirty. And so for me, I think those are the values that I carry throughout my career that continues to make me thrive.
Yeah, straight up, man. And yeah, as you're talking there, it made me think, bro, achievement in every field of human endeavor, for sure, man.
There you go.
For sure, man. And that is, and I just think that is awesome, right? Because everybody has different answers when you ask them that, and sometimes they're a little bit similar, but you can always feel the passion. There's like, no, like, it's not just family. Family is my value, but it's deeper than that, because the things that they have been through, whether it was moving, whether it was, different things that you've been through, different hardships, different struggles, that only made them closer. And then the things that you are doing, the sacrifices that, you're not even talking about, the late nights, the things that you've had to go through yourself to get to where you're at is, you look back and your why is the family, your value set. And I think that's something that can always carry you. And really on that note, and then after this, I'll pass it over to you, Kevin. But really, I guess, I know you're not just doing things within, the work environment, right? So I'm always curious, and when people who are at a higher status, what are some of the things that you are doing or investments that you're doing outside of just, your job?
I'll list a couple, and then we can talk about if you want to dive deeper, right? I think my first is, I'm a real estate investor. I'm an avid real estate investor. I've been doing real estate since probably 2002, like shortly after I got out of West Point, after I graduated West Point. Long story short is, you know about the Cal loan, right? At West Point, Richard. All right. Yep. So I'm class of 2001. So what does that tell you?
It tells me the Cal loan wasn't what it was now.
Well, that tells you I got my Cal loan in 2000. Okay.
Yeah.
So I got my Cal loan in February of 2000. All right. And then by April, the market, I mean, just imagine getting more money probably at the time than your mom was making. Right. And then you're going through all these seminars and you're listening to all these people and they're like, hey, investing, grow your money, investing. And so I thought I was doing the right thing. I put a little bit aside to kind of party and get a little bit of a car. And so
we all did.
Yeah. But it's probably out of the 4,000 we got back then, I probably put like 18,000 in the market in like February. And then the market crashed in April. I've never seen like $18,000 go to like 5,000. Like half of the companies went out of business, like .com this, .com, all out of business. I'm like, yo, this is crazy. And so long story short is that gave me a sense of comfort that, once I paid that 25,000 off, I was like, you know what? I'm okay with the risk, right? So like some people want to do real estate, but I tell people, like, if you want to learn how to swim, you can read a book about swimming. You can watch people swim. But until you jump in that pool, you're not going to know how to swim.
Survival swim.
Right. Until you jump in that water, you're not going to know how to swim. So for me, I felt like, okay, if I could take a risk on $25,000 and basically lose it all, right, then I could jump into real estate. And oh, by the way, the other thing it taught me was I can't rely on other people to be responsible for my wealth. I got to figure out
again right there, man.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I've got to be the champion. I've got to be the captain of my ship and be able to, drive my own ship, drive my own boat. And so that led me into real estate. So, I mean, I've probably been in and out of maybe, I would say, close to 40 to 50 deals. But right now I got about 20 houses. All right. And so my goal is that, at least how I think about it, is that most of us don't have a pension anymore. You got your 401k, right? And I look at the 401k as like, that's the corporate retirement for me, right? But then I look at, how can I take my wealth and transfer it into more of a pension? Okay. And so this is how I think about it. If I got 20 houses and by the time I'm 60 years old, all those houses are paid off. Okay. And let's just say I'm netting $1,000 a month. Okay. That's 20 grand a month. Can I live off 20 grand a month? I bet you I can.
Yeah.
You know, so that's how I look at it. It's like, how do I take these houses, pay them off, you know, make sure, you know, all my expenses are cut down so I can make $500 to $1,000 a month in retirement, and that'll carry me on into perpetuity. So, and how have I done that? So when I first started out, I call it bank with your 401k. I used to borrow. You could borrow up to $50,000. Listen, I'm not giving financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor. So, you know, just put all of the lawyer stuff before this, right? But I would bank with my 401k. I would borrow 50 grand from my 401k. Back then in Philly, you could buy houses for like 30, 40,000 a pop. My first deal, bought a house for, I think it was 30,000. I put 10,000 into it. You know, now it's worth, about 10, 15,000 into it. So now I'm 45,000 all cash in. I go to the bank. Okay. I do a refi. It's $100,000 house. They give me $70,000. I was like, wait a second. So now I can put the money back in my 401k, right? The 45,000, I put that back in my 401k. And then now I've got this other, you know, basically like $20,000 worth of cash that I just generated out of thin air. And I'm like, like just wash, rinse, and repeat that strategy. And so that's kind of what, you know, what I've been doing. I've done self-directed IRAs where that's basically, you know, taking a 401k from a job you've left, do a self-directed IRA, and then start a business with that. Or, you know, my business is real estate, right? I've done DSCR loans. Now I'm also starting to fund certain deals. Like I got one business partner, two business partners, where if they got something going, you know, they're really good repair guys or really good guys with their hands, I'll fund the deal and then we'll split the profits on the back end. So that's sort of my real estate, I guess, arm. And then, you know, just in corporate, I've got my 401k. I've got a HSA investing. If folks that have HSAs, you can actually invest your HSAs. So I max out my HSA and then I use that to invest. So those are just some of the things I do as far as investments outside of my day-to-day job.
Man, yeah. I think here we're real big on the real estate piece.
Okay.
And I would say with that, and I already kind of know the answer, but just for you, why real estate? Why real estate specifically? Why is that one of the avenues that you're passionate about or that you got into?
So I gave you one, right? It's my long-term retirement plan, right? Mm-hmm. I think the other thing that I've, you know, unfortunately in my family, fortunately but unfortunately, so my grandma was like one of, I think it was 9 of them, okay? And like 7 of the 9 people, her 9 siblings, 7 of them, actually, they all own houses, okay? Mm-hmm. We got one that owns the house and they're still around, but for all the ones that passed, which is I think 6 or 7 of them, you know, none of the houses are in the family anymore, right? And so for me, it's like not just getting the wealth, but also, you know, putting them in trust and making sure it's sustainable and that it's passed on generation to generation. So for me, it's a motivation of like real estate is long-term wealth that you can pass on, right, through generation. And if you can't pass on real estate, then you can't fix this whole the wealth gap problem, right? And so for me, I try to do that through real estate. And then I would say for me, wealth is about like making money in your sleep, but wealth is also about like your time, right? So if I could make money in my sleep, then I can use my waking hours to do what I really, really want. And so, you know, my goal now is to generate as much cash, as much money as possible, take those investments or take that, put it in investments, houses, real estate, whatever. And And then, when I'm 60, 65, whatever age I retire, that can last me into perpetuity, and then I'll pass it on, and it'll be a starting gap for my kids.
I love that. Yeah. I love that.
And yeah, yo. So I mean, so Angelo, man, like, did you have a mentor to kind of school you on the real estate strategy, or is it just something that you fell into? Like, how did you understand from going through the levels you went through to buying real estate to saying, yo, I could do this and work my job? Did you have somewhere that kind of guide you? For the folks out there listening that's maybe wanting to get into real estate, can you kind of give them an idea of how you fell into that?
So I'd say it's a combination of all the above. I'm an avid, real estate book reader, right? I all your classics, Cash Flow Quadrant, Robert Kiyosaki, right? That, to me, those are the fundamentals to get your mind thinking in business terms and real estate, right? There's also a book out there called Living the Real Estate Lifestyle by Jim Canale. And, Jim has since passed away, but Jim was probably I wouldn't call him a mentor, but I took a couple classes of his, and, he has a good strategy. So I would say combination of kind of learning on my own, going to I took a bunch of Robert Kiyosaki classes, and then just talking to people. I mean, now you've got especially through the West Point channel, you got all these different USMA groups on Facebook. You've got a bunch of podcasts. You got YouTube. There's almost like a plethora, unlimited number of resources nowadays. But back then it was, oh, I heard something new today. Let me go research it. Self-directed IRA. Like, I did a self-directed IRA back in 2008, 2009. Right. This was before self-directed was a thing. And now they're doing boat cruises talking about self-directed IRA. I was like, oh yeah, been there, done that, But yeah, so a little bit of hustling on my own to find knowledge and to seek knowledge. And the other piece was, as I sought the knowledge, sought out mentors in different parts of that to make me a better investor. And I learned a lot, right? But I tell people, if you go to a college, you're going to spend, $50,000 a year easily. So for me in real estate, now I don't like to take hits on $50,000, but if you got to spend, $10,000, $15,000 for a class, and you get something out of it and you're able to apply that strategy, then to me, it's worth it.
Yeah. Yeah. Nah, man, that's super dope, man. I mean, because I know for me, I used to think I could do it all on my own. I know we talk about chemistry over, over talent and on this podcast, So how did you build your team? How did you be able to, go from job to almost entrepreneur, almost, because you're balancing both, right? Because you're yourself and you're still doing corporate. How do you balance that along with, are you doing it by yourself? Are you playing hero ball, or do you have a team that you really vibe with, that really job done for you?
Yeah, it evolved over time, right? I will tell you, I probably fired more accountants than you can think of, right? I've probably been through at least 5 to 7 different accountants before I found the right one, right? And I wouldn't even say I have the right accountant now, but I know enough to ask the right questions so that he leads me in the right direction, right? Yeah. So I've also got a friend who turned out, he was a property manager for me at first, and then he became a business partner because he see how how I was moving, how things were going, how much money was flowing through, and so how I landed on him was he came as a recommendation. This guy had he had a hustle. He was a city guy, but he didn't have if I asked for a resume, what is that, And so as we started talking, honestly, this is what he said to me. He says, okay, how much you want for this house? I said, okay. I don't know, back then, call it $900 a month. Okay. He says, okay, I'll put my skin in the game. I'll give you a year's worth of rent if you let me manage this house. Okay. That was back in probably 2009. We've been doing deals ever since. He's been my property manager ever since. Right. Because to me, he's got skin in the game. We've worked together over the years. I trust him. He trusts me. And now he's not just a property manager, but he's also a business partner. I've sold him houses. We've done deals together. We bought some deals during the pandemic that was crazy. Right now I've got I got one of the deals me and him got is a So a beauty salon in the basement, a barbershop, and a two-bedroom apartment. Okay, all in the same unit, right? Now, I think we bought it for like 260, 270. Okay. And it's like at maybe like a 3%, 4% rate on that, and that's on a commercial loan. Okay. Yeah. So I'm paying slightly over $1,000 a month, which is exactly what I'm charging for that two-bedroom apartment upstairs. Right. Yeah. So the two-bedroom apartment is keeping me in the, right at break even, but then the barbershop and the beauty salon just skyrockets, take us up over. So that's like a deal we've done together. I probably went through many different repair crews over the years. I think that's one, like once you get a good repair team, good fix-up crew, for me, it's hard to keep them busy because I'm not constantly doing deals. I'm not doing deals like every month, every 3 months. But I know enough now that when I've got a good deal, I know where to find good people. But the repair side of the business, especially if you're doing this every day, got to keep those guys in the game. Otherwise they'll go find other work to do, and then you lose good people. So I'd say my team is really like, actually I got one guy now who he and I are again business partners. He does really, really good work. I couldn't afford him to do work for me. So I was like, okay, you do good work, let me finance the deal. I'll buy the house, I'll give you the money to fix up, and we'll split the profit. So that's what we do now. And so like nice houses that we bought during a pandemic, he fixed it up, we flipped them, and and turned around, wash, rinse, repeat that. So that's kind of my team in a nutshell.
Yeah. Nah, that's man, hey, you gotta have a team no matter what, man, no matter what you do. So, that's so important. So let me ask you this. I know you do your big things in corporate America right now, and you're doing, your side hustle too. But when did you first learn about cash flow and leverage, right? Because like a lot of us that look like us, we don't grow up understanding what cash flow is, what leverage is. I mean, I know for me, I thought having cash flow was just having a wad of cash that we see dope boy on the corner, and he got a wad of cash, he got cash flow, right?
Right. Gotcha.
Financial terms, you know what I'm saying? That's actual. So when did you first understand, like, cash flow is where it's at versus, big checks and paying capital gains tax?
Honestly, I mean, I think it goes back in Cash Flow Quadrant. Like you read those two books, and I mean, everything you just said right there is in the book, right? And so I probably read those very early on. I would say probably when I was a lieutenant in the Army. Those were some of the first books that I read. I bought a condo back then for like $75,000 at Fort Bragg. I turned it into a rental. And then later sold it. I think I sold the condo to another West Point grad during the pandemic, right? So but the whole cash flow piece is things that I learned about by reading Robert Kiyosaki's books. And I valued and treasured that knowledge so much that I made my kids read those in high school, right? Yeah. So it's easy reads. It's like high school reads, middle school reads, but just really to get them in a mindset of ownership. And so, I would say very early on is where I learned about cash flow. And then when I did my first deal, I kind of practiced it in that I went to the bank and I leveraged it up, right? And took out a $70,000 loan. I was only $45,000 into the deal, and to really see me almost make money out of thin air, right? I made money out of thin air. I got a tax benefit, and I got tenants paying off the mortgage. Like, to me, that's the trifecta, right? It's like just keep doing it. Just do that again and again. And so, so that's what really got me hungry and passionate about real estate.
Man, hey, so for the folks out there listening right now, what type of information would you give them, or what would you say that could push someone in the direction of understanding cash flow versus just getting a paycheck, right? Because I know it's good reading, because that's how it taught me. Hey, I'm a student of YouTube University, you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And I listen to a lot of audiobooks. I mean, because coming from where I came from, we just played ball. I come from a family of ballers. you either play ball or you sold dope, yo. You know what I'm saying?
That was your way out. That was your way out.
That was the way out, right? And so we wasn't getting taught nothing about cash flow or leverage or anything. What would you say is, I guess, I know you got to stay disciplined, but like for our folks that's out there watching today, say an 18-year-old that's just understanding how to, just got out of high school, what advice would you give them to kind of say, look, if you want to have a wealthy life, what would you say you can give them tonight that can say, yo, if you start out here, you can end here? What advice?
I mean, honestly, I would say probably hard for me to tell you something at 18, but I'd say probably like early 20s. If I'm an Army officer and so I'll start Army and then I'll give another example. If I'm an Army officer, right now you have you can get a 5-unit building and that's still considered single family. Okay. And so if you're an Army officer, you don't have any kids and you kind of like, figuring out life, I would buy me a 5-unit building with the VA loan. Okay. No money down. I would live in one of those units. I would rent out the other 4 units and I would stack paper and stack paper and stack paper. And then, when you're done that, right, you can then turn all 5 units into rentals and that becomes your first. And if you can start out with like the first one being a multifamily, you're literally like on level 8 coming out the gates. Right. So that's what I would like. That's what I would do if I had to do it all over again as an Army officer, because then you can also use those other 4 units. Usually the bank will say, okay, 80% of that you can count as your income. So 80% of that rent and the other units you can count as income, right? To be able to offset your debt income, so you can afford a little bit more, and then you can be basically living for free in the last unit. So that's what I would do as an Army officer, as a young sort of business professional, right? And again, this is not investing advice, but like the proof is in the pudding. So you've got to actually find a deal. Maybe partner. I would partner up. I think partner up is a little bit safe. It's a little bit less risky. And then I borrow that $50,000 from the 401k. You get a partner. They borrow $50,000 from their 401k. Now you got $100,000. You got $100,000 of cash that you can use. Okay, now $100,000. I wouldn't go buy a $500,000 house, even though you can buy a $500,000 house, right? But you go somewhere in the South, or you go somewhere that's especially if you're a little handy, you can get a house for $200,000 to $300,000, call it $250,000. Okay, and then you say, okay, we're going to do that. We're going to get the house. So if this house is $250,000, okay, you got to put 20% down. So you're putting down $50,000. That's only one person's $50,000. The other $50,000 you're using to fix it up, get it all ready, and then you rent it out, and maybe 3 or 6 months later, you go leverage it up. And then and once you see it, like the proof is in the pudding. Once you see it and you're like, wow, like I can actually do this. And, you'll learn some lessons along the way, and you'll obviously in the repairs, you're going to learn a lot of lessons. Right. But, you go get your money out the deal. Now, all of a sudden it's like, okay, got it. Good. I can do that over and over and over again. So I guess those would be the 2 different examples of like, if I had to get in from basically the beginning, how I would enter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nah, and that's good stuff right there, man. I mean, because we talk about cash flow and leverage and real estate every single podcast, man. So for our folks that, they're looking to be real estate investors, right? I mean, yeah, they may have a job, but we that cash flow is a must to have, because like you said, we don't have jobs that are paying pensions anymore. We don't have jobs in life anymore. You know what I mean? We've been taken off the gold standard in the 70s. So,
right. You've been reading Robert Kiyosaki too, talking about the gold standard in the 70s.
Hey, you already put out there, you know what I'm saying? But I'm gonna tell you that second book that he had, Second Chance. You read that one? Robert Kiyosaki's Second Chance.
I don't think I read that one.
Man, listen, blew me out of the water, yo, because I read Rich Dad Poor Dad in like 2001.
Yeah.
And that was like the first financial book I ever read, but I didn't really take advantage of it. And then, man, I ended up reading Robert Kiyosaki's Second Chance maybe like 3 years ago. Okay. And like made me go back to the Rich Dad Poor Dad, and it just all came together, man, because like we do a lot of fix and flips and we do new construction, but now I don't want big checks no more. I want cash flow every single month. So we're doing right? So it was like a light bulb moment all of a sudden, because I had to, I'm getting capital gains tax at 30 and 40%. You know what I'm saying?
You got to hold it for a year and a day. You got to hold it for a year and a day. That's the key to avoiding that capital gains tax.
Yeah. But see, my thing was, hey, get it done, get it sold. You know what I mean? Get it off as fast as possible. And now I'm the opposite of that. I wish I had never sold any of my stuff and just held on.
Right. Yep.
Like, we're talking about a lot of multifamily and commercial. If I was to start over, just like you said, I would start at that quadplex, move into one, renovate 3, rent them, and just duplicate it every single year. And, that's just, I love talking to people about that. You know what I'm saying? So having you on, bro, it's just a big blessing, man. So, I guess, Richard, you're going to have to take it from here, man.
Yeah, no, I got some stuff brewing up for sure, man, because you said a lot of key things, and I wrote down, I always got my pen, with me and everything. So one of the things I wrote down was, it's something you kind of just brushed over, but it's so important, right? And it's about really creating, setting people up for the future. And then you specifically noted your kids, you had them reading, books such as The Cash Flow Quadrant, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, while they were in high school. And that is unheard of. And most people don't even hear about that book, right? Like, and it's crazy. All that to say is those books potentially changed their lives. And I know it was for me, because when I was, long story short, my grandfather, back when I was, I did a CTLTs down at Fort Sill, and that's where my grandparents lived. So I did it to try to go see them and introduce them to my fiance, now wife. My pop, he had cancer at the time, and they weren't crazy. They didn't have a crazy amount of money, all that kind of stuff. They were preachers, very, very humble. My pop had a copy of Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and he handwritten in it. He gave it to me and said, I know you're ambitious. If you do take these tools in this book, you will be able to accomplish everything that you want to. And when you do that, make sure that you are paying it forward is the most important piece, right? And I'm 21 at the time, and that was the book that got me into real estate. Right. Just my pop handed me a book of Rich Dad, Poor Dad, say, read this book, take it serious, and you can accomplish everything you want to. And it's something so small, right? We're all on such a thin thread. And I know it's very important for you, because one of the things you didn't talk too much about it, but I'm gonna hype you up, is that the amount of work that you do for the next generation, whether it is in the financial literacy space, the opportunity that you're creating, the connection that you're making. And I've seen it, seen it personally. It is so important. And that you are changing lives. And I think that piece is so important, because when it comes to, again, people that look like us, one of the things, we don't necessarily see all those mentors within our community. And that was kind of the big reason we even, started this podcast, Kevin and I, was we want to teach with what we know now, right? And we know some we're doing all right, but we want to connect these people and be like, hey, like, take these lessons that we learn now at such a young age, and the amount of people that you can impact and the amount of change that can come out of it is so big. So all that to say, going back to you, I know you have a passion around financial literacy. I just wanted to ask you if you could talk about that a little bit more.
Yeah, I think, you've got to, like, financial literacy is all about understanding, like, what you got coming in and what you got going out, right? And once you understand it, then you can make intentional decisions about what to do about it, right? If you don't have enough money coming out, right, there's two things you can do. You can go get other money coming in, right? And I think there was something where it's like, you want like 6 different forms of income, right? Or you can say, I need to cut some of my expenses. So I think it all really starts at like budgeting. And I will tell you, I am not kidding you, because, again, my kids are young adults. So first thing I did was teach them how to budget when they got to college. I've got the same Excel spreadsheet that I do on the 1st and the 15th from the time I was a young lieutenant in the Army.
That's great.
And literally all I do is right click, copy sheet, and then I rename the sheet, and then I just, like, I can go back and tell you how much I paid in the AT&T bill, my cell phone bill, back when I was at Fort Bragg, right? So I really think it's all about, like, just understanding the basics. It's sometimes it's not like, it's not like grand. It's sometimes just about the basics, the blocking and tackling of, do you understand your income, what's coming in, what's going out? How do you minimize the taxes? Kevin talked about, the capital gains tax, but how do you minimize the taxes? Like, are you in a Roth IRA? You know, are you in a Roth 401k? Are you in the HSA? All of those things to help you sort of minimize your tax burden. Because if you minimize your tax burden now, then guess what? You get to keep more money later, and you get to keep more money in your paycheck. So I'd say that's one, is really just, you know, understanding how to budget. I think just two is really, again, going back to having that growth mindset and figuring out, like, where do I want to be? What am I passionate about? Like, real estate is not for everybody, but what can I be passionate about that makes me want to be hungry to learn more about it? It would be my second point. And then my third point would be, like, how do you seek mentors along the way to help guide you on that path, whatever path you decide to make? And, you know, it's funny because even before LinkedIn, I joke with people like, look, I was LinkedIn before LinkedIn. Back when I was like a young lieutenant, I'm like, you know, I can tell you where so-and-so went, what B school they went to, what job they working at. And like, even today, what I value most about people is their story, right? And so as I hear your story, sometimes I find a way to connect, right? It's like, oh, okay, Richard, okay, he's at West Point, and I don't know when the connection is going to happen, but all of a sudden I'll meet somebody, you know, 6 months from now, and they either have an ask, or they have a need, or you know, they want to learn something. I'm like, oh, call so and so and so and so. And again, I go back to like my name being my signature, and I'm like, tell them Angelo sent you, right? And then I know once that happens, that's the handshake, you know, because, you know, I've done good things for people, and people have done good things for me, and it's about paying it forward.
That's the key, man. You know, that's like the principles out of the book. I usually have it on my desk. I don't have it right here, but it's called the Go Giver.
Oh yeah, I've read the Go Giver. Yeah.
I've read that. I read it at least, like, no joke, 2 to 3 times a year. That is like it's probably like my favorite book, actually.
Probably the first book I've read, and this was when I was a cadet, actually. One of the first books is this one. It could be a weird one depending upon which version you pick up. The Richest Man in Babylon.
Oh yeah.
Like that one, The Richest Man in Babylon. If you pick up the wrong version, it's like you're back in the 2000 BC. You know what I mean? You know, but it's like, but like if you pick up the right version, it will, you know, it gives you those 10 golden nuggets, right? Mm-hmm. A little bit of yours that you make is yours to keep, right? Yeah, you follow those nuggets, and I think that, along with some of the other books we talked about, will help to build that foundation that you need to be successful.
Yeah,
and to grow your assets.
Yeah, and that's so key too, because they say a lot of, you always, if you want to hide anything, you know, for certain people, you put it in the book. You know what I mean? Put it in the book, right? Because, you know, some brothers just don't read. You know, and that's what I try to tell these folks, man. And even when I'm on the trips, and you probably the same thing. When I'm at outreach and I go on that stage, I hope nobody from my job is listening, but if it is what it is. But it's like, I'm going to talk about the mission of the Army, yes, and like try to get folks to West Point. But it's like, look, young brothers and sisters, I got y'all here. Let me tell y'all the real. Let me tell y'all what's what for real. Yeah. Whether or not you choose to go to West Point, I want to leave you guys with something, because books, like they've legitimately changed my life. Cause I'm like, man, like, that is where everything is. That is like where all the secrets lie are in books, are in seminars. And before, man, just kind of like you said, I used to be that guy who's like, oh man, I got to pay $5,000, $10,000 for a course. But then you go pay that money for that course, and now you're making 50, 60K because of the knowledge that you learn. And people who are at high statuses, or people who are at those levels, they don't look at it as a cost. They look at it as an opportunity. What do I get out of me paying this money, right? The value. What is the value add there? So yeah, I really appreciate you saying that, for sure.
Yeah, well, for me right now, when I go to a class, it's a write-off. So it's a business. if you really do it the right way, it's an expense, right?
Right.
So,
ability, yo.
Yeah.
Every day of the week. So right now, Angelo. So before we're getting down to the final minute, but what are you working on now, and how can we bring value to your table?
Great question, Kevin.
On it.
So, I mean, I would say probably a majority of my time is figuring out the business thing, right? Like the my day job, right? My, running Zipcar job. But if you want to talk about my side hustle, I'd say when I started this, it was getting into I started in single families. Okay. Now I'd say I probably got half single families and half multi-units. So what I want to do now is figure out like how to parlay and get in and get out of the single families 1031 exchange that. Oh, I've done 1031 exchanges too, by the way. I forgot.
Yeah.
But 1031 exchange that into more multi-families. The other piece is that, primarily many of my houses, and again, this is, when you talk about building a team, majority of my houses are in the Philadelphia area, because to me, it's easy to wash, rinse, and repeat, because all the houses are the same. I can use the same paint colors, the same flooring, and so it makes it easy to kind of continue leveraging that strategy. Yep. But like really, shifting some of that risk out of Philly, because, as you get older, you can't, and I'm not old, but like shifting that risk to me is important. So like, how do I move out of Philly and maybe move into other markets? Like we bought a house like last year, in Georgia. It's my in-laws' house. I mean, my in-laws, my next door neighbor to my in-laws. So it's like, okay, that was an opportunity, right? But how do I shift out of Philly into other areas and do it through a 1031 exchange? And look, I don't do it full time, so I take what I can get. If it's a good deal, it's a good deal. People who know me know I invest. So when there's opportunities that come up, then I take advantage of those. But I'm not out there every day. But like, every 6 months, once every quarter or so, somebody might come to me with a deal. And the good thing is I've done it so many times that like literally you can bring me a deal. If it don't meet my 1% rule, I won't even look at it. I'll be like, nah, I'm good. So like you bring me a house, $300,000, okay, all in, whatever. If it can't bring me $3,000 a month, all right, I'm right. Next. What's the next deal? Right. So I can hear the information and say boom, 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 boom. I'm good. Or okay, I'm interested now. Let me go to peel the onion back. So so that's what I would say.
So we're doing multifamily just pretty much all day now, right? Because I used to do I started in residential in 2006.
Okay.
Went through the recession, did short sales. So we always like to connect with folks to say, hey, how can we bridge the gap and work together, right? Because that's what this is about, the continual growth and, increasing your net worth, increasing your cash flow, and you're lowering your tax liability, right?
Yeah.
So you always want to, be in a vicinity of folks like yourself and busy professionals that are looking to invest, because, man, I'm telling you, I know some other guys that don't look like us. They're making hundreds of thousands a month off of market rent and multifamily, 100 units plus. You know what I mean? So
well, you said something in there that's so it's always, people always think like real estate is is good tax wise, but when you're a W-2, like I'm a W-2 guy, right? So everything goes into a bucket, and until you got $25,000, that's all you can write off. Everything else gets bucketized. But like there's opportunities, like when I left my one company and went to the other, I became a real estate professional, right? For the better part of the year. And then I wrote off my car. Then that bucket of money that I had sitting, that all became, became tax deductions for me. So you may not get that tax benefit, I guess is what I'm trying to say, right away if you're a W-2, but it'll be there at some point when you need it. And it's like, it always comes at the right time. And Richard, you asked me about my car. Yeah, that was the car I wrote off. So that was probably spent more than I wanted to for it, but there was a reason why.
Hey, and see, in doing the syndications, have you done a syndication before?
I've never done a syndication. I know what syndications are, but I've never done one.
Yeah, so that's what we do. So at the end of the day, bro, like we got to connect. We got to chop it up about that, man, because I know you're doing your W-2 job, but this works on its own. You know what I mean? So you don't have to be there, and that's the beauty of it, the cash flow, and increasing your net worth. We do all value adds. So like, yeah, man, let's Richard hook us up, man. And
what part of the country? Are you in Maryland?
No, I'm in North Carolina, so I do the Southeast quadrant too. So I do North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Florida, Dallas, Fort Worth, and Houston, Texas.
Okay, yeah, I like South Carolina. I got family in South Carolina. I was just down in South Carolina for the USC women's game, and so the whole Elgin, Columbia, South Carolina area is very intriguing. So I'll probably have So yeah, that's a good area for me.
Richard, connect us. I got a 353 unit deal in South Carolina right now that I'm working on.
Okay, all right.
And Richard, brother.
I got. One more thing. So I know we've run out of time, but
we're good. We got 4 minutes. Yeah.
So so also, you know, when you're at a certain level, you can become a what is it called?
Accredited investor.
Accredited investor, right? And so through that, I've actually gotten some deals. Like I'm an early investor in Uncle Nearest, right? So Uncle Nearest is the
That's what's up. Yeah, I got some of that. Come on the bar.
yeah. So I got that, and then there's this. I guess I've thought a couple things, and then there's a East Chop Capital. So I'm an investor in East Chop Capital, which is some young brothers who are basically doing value adds to like high end family style vacation homes. So like think, you know, 6 to 10 bedroom vacation homes. And there's a lot of benefits that they tie in there, but I'm an investor in that. And through them, I was able to get into Uncle Nearest. So there's a couple other things I might've forgotten along the way, but yeah. I mean, being an accredited investor, I'm in Boxables. I think I'm in Boxables, which is like these little small, like houses that they build. And I'm probably in a couple. I forget half the stuff, to be honest with you. But I'm in a couple different things that I probably didn't talk about. But
it's a good spot to be in. I tell you what, you know, I forgot what I'm doing, but hey, I know it's working.
You put the money there and you let it sit. You know, you just let it grow, and if you forget about it, you don't have to worry. You come back and you know there's plentiful.
That's the best spot to be, man. Like I like that's one of the goals. Like I'm doing real estate, and eventually it's like I want to start my own like lending company to where I'm lending and investing in different opportunities, because that's true mailbox money, to where you give somebody the money, they're doing the work, and you get a return. That is true mailbox money. And actually, we're going to try to get a Christian on here too, Patron on here, and have him talk, because me and him
get Chris on here. That's he's doing great things down in Texas. I lent to Chris as well. I got a couple dollars in some of his investments, and that's another one I forgot. See,
man. Hey, that's a good spot. A good spot to be in, for real.
Listen, I gotta write this stuff down because it's
a humble flex, you know.
It's like, you know, I got all these little, you know. Again, there's 6-7 different streams of income. That's the goal, you know. So some of it I do on my own, and some of it I partner with, and sometimes forget about, apparently.
Yeah, so, that comes with age, you know. You had to throw one on.
Look.
Had to throw one in there.
I lost my hair a long time ago. You know, I lost my hair.
I'm getting there, bro.
You need to go ahead and cut that back.
Good on that.
Yeah, you good, man. You good. You have no stress over there, Kevin. No stress.
Nothing. Look, I got it, but the family's genes just so strong, you know.
Okay. All right. Good stuff.
Yeah. Well, shoot. I mean, but outside of that, Angelo, that's all we really got for you, brother. Again, thank you so much for hopping on and being a guest. For those out there, if you guys want to, you know, connect with Angelo or anything like that, learn more about him, definitely reach out to us. I'm sure you can look him up. I mean, you can just look him up online as well too. I mean, you throw him on. I did a Google search before too. Like it just popped up. So you have that as well too. But I mean, if anybody wanted to reach out to you, what would be the best way you would recommend? Is it more so, LinkedIn, Facebook, or what would you say is the best way?
Yeah, probably LinkedIn. Angelo Adams on LinkedIn. My Facebook, I try to keep that very family
private.
And friendly. And then, otherwise I have to send you through my PR folks. But yeah, LinkedIn is probably a good one. I get a message request on LinkedIn. I'm usually on there pretty often, so I'll respond.
Awesome. Yeah, but outside of that, brother, please just stick around. We'll go to the breakout room. But thank you guys for joining us this week on Assets Over Money Podcast, episode 15. We'll see y'all in a few weeks.
Hey, thanks for having me. I appreciate it, guys. Thanks.
Yes, sir. Thank you.